The blue glow of my phone screen cut through the darkness at 2:47 a.m. I'd been lying there for hours, listening to the old house settle around me, waiting for the sound of Haley's car in the driveway. My wife had been working late again, the third time this week at her architectural firm downtown. I'm Nick Braxton, 34 years old, construction supervisor for Morrison Brothers. I build things that last, things you can trust. Apparently, I'm not as good at building marriages. The notification chimed softly, a text from my buddy Mike. "Dude, saw your wife at the quarry with Derek Allen again. Thought you should know." My stomach dropped. Derek Allen, the town's golden boy handyman with his perfectly trimmed beard and that stupid lifted truck. Every woman in our small Maine town seemed to think he was God's gift to humanity, including, apparently, my wife. I heard gravel crunching in the driveway. Haley's Honda Civic pulled up, headlights sweeping across our bedroom wall. I quickly put my phone face down and closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. The front door creaked open. Haley tried to be quiet, but after 15 years in this house, I knew every sound. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she tiptoed through the living room. The stairs groaned under her weight. The third step from the bottom always did that. She slipped into our bedroom, and I caught a whiff of cologne. Not mine. Derek's expensive stuff that he probably bought to impress married women. "Nick," she whispered. "You awake?" I kept my breathing steady, eyes closed. Through barely open lids, I watched her fumble with her phone, the screen lighting up her face. She was deleting something. Messages, probably. My heart hammered against my ribs. 15 years of marriage, and it comes to this. Lying in bed, pretending to sleep, while my wife covers her tracks. The next morning came too soon. I was already dressed and making coffee when Haley stumbled downstairs in her robe, looking guilty as hell. "You're up early," she said, avoiding eye contact. "Couldn't sleep." I handed her a mug. "How was work last night?" "Oh, you know. Boring client meeting. Went really late." She sipped her coffee, still not looking at me. "I'm exhausted." "I bet." The words came out sharper than I intended. She finally looked up, her green eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that client meetings at the quarry must be really draining." Her face went white. The coffee mug trembled in her hands. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." I pulled out my phone, showing her Mike's text. "Small town, Haley. People see things." It wasn't what it looked like. The words tumbled out fast, desperate. Derek was just helping me with some project ideas. We needed somewhere quiet to talk. The quarry? Quiet? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That place is louder than a construction site on Friday night. "You're being paranoid, Nick. This is exactly why I can't talk to you about work anymore. You always assume the worst. Classic Haley. Turn it around, make me the bad guy." She'd been doing it for years, and I'd been stupid enough to fall for it. "Show me your phone," I said. "What?" "Your phone. If it's just work stuff, show me." She clutched the device against her chest like it was made of gold. "I don't have to prove anything to you." Marriage is about trust, Nick. Trust. I set my mug down hard enough to slosh coffee onto the counter. "You want to talk about trust? You came home at 3 a.m. smelling like another man's cologne, and you want to lecture me about trust? I can't do this right now." She turned to leave, but I stepped in front of her. "We're doing this now, Haley. Right now. Move, Nick. Show me the phone." "No." We stood there, locked in a stare-down like gunfighters at high noon. 15 years of marriage hanging in the balance over a piece of plastic and glass. Then her phone buzzed. A text message. Without thinking, she looked down at the screen, and I saw her face change. Panic. Pure, undiluted panic. "Who's texting you at 7 a.m, Haley?" "It's work." I lunged for the phone. Not to hurt her, just to grab it, but she jerked backward. Her feet tangled in the kitchen chair, and she stumbled. The phone flew out of her hands, skittering across the linoleum floor. I dove for it. So did she. We both reached it at the same time, but I got there first. "Give it back!" She grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. The phone was still unlocked. The message was right there on the screen, from Derek. "Last night was incredible. When can we do it again?" My world tilted sideways. Seeing it in black and white made it real in a way that suspicion never could. "Nick, let me explain." I scrolled up. More messages, weeks of them. "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again. My husband's working late tomorrow. Meet me at the usual place." And then I saw it. A video file sent 3 days ago. My thumb hovered over it for a second, then I pressed play. The video was shaky, obviously shot on a phone. Derek's converted barn, the one he'd turned into his bachelor pad. And there was my wife, my Haley, doing things with Derek Allen that she hadn't done with me in years. The phone slipped from my numb fingers. "Nick, please." I looked up at her. This woman I'd loved since college, this stranger wearing my wife's face. "How long?" "It's not what you think." "How long, Haley?" 3 months. The words were barely a whisper. 3 months. While I'd been working extra hours to save for our anniversary trip to Portland. While I'd been planning to surprise her with the kitchen renovation she'd been wanting. While I'd been falling asleep every night next to a woman who was thinking about another man. "I want you to leave," I said quietly. "Nick, we can work through this. I want you to pack a bag and get out of my house." "Your house?" Her voice climbed an octave. "This is our house. Our marriage. You can't just throw me out because you're having a jealous fit." Jealous fit? I stood up slowly, and she took a step back. Maybe something in my face scared her. "Good. You've been screwing Derek Allen for 3 months, sending him videos, planning meetups while I'm at work, and you think this is about jealousy? You don't understand the pressure I've been under at work. Stop." I held up my hand. "Just stop. Don't make this about work or stress or anything else. You cheated. You lied. You made me feel crazy for suspecting what was right in front of my face." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streams. "I made a mistake, Nick. People make mistakes. Mistakes are forgetting to pick up milk. This was a choice. Every text, every lie, every time you came home smelling like him, all choices." I picked up her phone and held it out to her. "Pack a bag, Haley. Go stay with Derek or your sister or whoever, but you're not sleeping in my bed tonight." She snatched the phone away, her tears suddenly stopping. "You can't make me leave. This is my house too. Watch me." That's when she lost it completely. Her face twisted with rage, and she drew back her hand and slapped me across the face, hard. The crack echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. I touched my cheek, feeling the sting, tasting blood where my teeth had cut my lip. "You hit me!" she screamed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "I'll call the police." "You can't assault me in my own home." I stared at her, this woman I'd once promised to love and honor, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Something that might have been my heart turning to ice. "Sure," I said quietly. "Call them." I walked out of that kitchen and didn't look back. Grabbed my keys, my wallet, and headed for the door while Haley screamed threats behind me. Something about lawyers and domestic violence charges and how I'd be sorry. The morning air was crisp, typical for October in Maine. Mrs. Winston was already on her porch across the street, coffee mug in hand, watching the drama unfold. She'd lived in this neighborhood for 40 years and knew everyone's business before they did. I gave her a wave. Might as well be neighborly. My truck started on the 3rd try, needed to get that starter looked at. I drove aimlessly through town, past the elementary school where Haley and I had talked about sending our kids someday, past the park where we'd had our first date, past all the places that used to mean something. I ended up at Mike's apartment above the hardware store. He was getting ready for work, tool belt already around his waist. Jesus, Nick, you look like hell. He took one look at my face and grabbed 2 beers from the fridge. It's not even 8 a.m., but I'm thinking you need this. I told him everything. The phone, the messages, the video, the slap. Mike listened without interrupting, occasionally shaking his head or muttering curses under his breath. So what's the plan? He asked when I finished. Plan? Come on, man. You're not just going to roll over and let her screw you in the divorce, are you? She's been cheating for months. You've got evidence. I hadn't thought that far ahead. I was still processing the fact that my marriage was over. She's probably already calling her sister, Mike continued, getting her story straight. Making you out to be the bad guy. My phone buzzed. Text from Haley. I'm staying at Derek's tonight. We need to talk tomorrow when you've calmed down. I showed Mike the message. He snorted. Classy. Real classy. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. Why should she? Cat's out of the bag. Mike cracked open his beer. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Haley's sister, Jennifer. Nick? Jennifer's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. What the hell did you do to my sister? What did I do? She's sitting here crying, telling me you went crazy, started throwing things, threatened her. She's scared to go home. I felt that cold feeling in my chest spread. Jennifer, did she mention why I might be upset? She said you've been paranoid and controlling lately. That you went through her phone without permission and started making wild accusations. Wild accusations. I looked at Mike, who was shaking his head in disgust. Did she tell you about Derek Allen? Silence on the other end. Jennifer. That's not the point, Nick. Even if she made a mistake, that doesn't give you the right to put your hands on her. I never touched her. She slapped me. That's not what she's saying. Of course it wasn't. I should have seen this coming. Haley was already rewriting history, turning herself into the victim. Look, Jennifer, I know you love your sister, but don't. Her voice was ice cold. Don't try to manipulate me. Haley's coming to stay with me for a while, and if you try to contact her, I'm calling the police. She hung up. Mike was watching me with a grim expression. Let me guess. You're the villain now. Apparently. I stared at my phone. How does this happen? How does the person who gets cheated on become the bad guy? Because people like Haley are good at playing victim. They've had practice. I spent the day at work, trying to lose myself in the familiar rhythm of construction. We were finishing up a house renovation on Oak Street. New kitchen, hardwood floors, the works. Honest work that you could see and touch and be proud of. But I couldn't concentrate. Every few minutes my mind would drift back to that video, to the look on Haley's face when she realized I'd seen it, to the sting of her hand across my cheek. Around lunchtime, one of the younger guys, Tommy, came up to me with a weird expression. Hey, Nick. I don't know if I should tell you this, but just say it, Tommy. My girlfriend works at the bank downtown. She says your wife was in there this morning trying to get information about your joint accounts. The cold feeling in my chest turned to ice. What kind of information? How to remove your name, transfer funds, that kind of thing. I pulled out my phone and checked our bank app. Sure enough, there were new login attempts from a device I didn't recognize. She was locked out for now. We'd set up 2-factor authentication last year, but she was definitely trying to get to our money. Thanks for the heads up, Tommy. I called the bank during my lunch break. Explained the situation to the manager, a guy named Peterson who'd handled our mortgage. I'm sorry to hear about your troubles, Nick. What can I do for you? I want to freeze all joint accounts until this gets sorted out, and I want to know if my wife has tried to access anything. Well, I can't give specific details over the phone, but I can tell you that we've had some unusual activity on your accounts today. Someone trying to access them without proper authorization. Can you stop any transfers or withdrawals? Already done. We flagged the accounts this morning when we saw the suspicious login attempts. Small victories. That evening, I drove past Derek's place, a converted barn about 2 miles outside town. Haley's Honda was parked next to his ridiculous lifted truck. I sat there for a few minutes, engine running, wondering what they were doing in there. Wondering if they were laughing about me. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Derek. Stay away from Haley. She doesn't want to see you. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, tell her she left her wedding ring on the kitchen counter. I'll be sure to return it to her family. No response. I drove home to my empty house, ordered pizza, and sat in my living room surrounded by 15 years of shared memories. Wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, furniture we'd picked out together. It all felt like someone else's life now. Around 10 p.m., I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I saw Haley getting out of Derek's truck. She had a key, of course. It was still her house, too, legally speaking. She came through the front door like she owned the place, which I guess she did. Half of it, anyway. We need to talk, she said. She looked different somehow, more confident, like she'd spent the day getting coached on what to say. I'm listening. I want you to know that I've filed a police report about this morning. About you assaulting me. I never touched you. That's not how I remember it. She sat down across from me, crossing her legs. The officer was very sympathetic. Apparently, domestic violence cases are taken very seriously these days. I felt the walls closing in. You're lying. Am I? Officer Martinez seemed very interested in my story, especially the part about how you've been controlling and paranoid lately, going through my phone, monitoring my activities, making threats. What do you want, Haley? I want you to be reasonable. We can end this marriage quietly, civilly. 50-50 split of everything, no lawyers, no drama. After what you did. What I did was have a relationship with someone who actually pays attention to me. Someone who doesn't take me for granted. Her voice was getting stronger, more defiant. You want to know the truth, Nick? Derek makes me feel alive again. When's the last time you made me feel anything besides bored? The words hit like physical blows. So this is my fault? I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I'm saying we grew apart. It happens. Growing apart is one thing. Cheating is another. She shrugged. I'm done apologizing. I'm done feeling guilty. I want a divorce, Nick. The question is whether we do this the easy way or the hard way. And if I choose the hard way? Her smile was cold as winter. Then Officer Martinez gets a follow-up call about how you're continuing to harass and threaten me, how you won't leave me alone, how scared I am. I stared at her, this stranger wearing my wife's face. You've got it all figured out, don't you? I've got Derek helping me figure it out. He's been through a divorce before. He knows how these things work. Derek. Of course, the golden boy with his charm and his experience screwing over ex-wives. Think about it, Nick. You've got 24 hours to decide. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt. At the door, she turned back. Oh, and Nick. You might want to stay away from the quarry for a while. People are talking. After she left, I sat in the dark for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences and how quickly a life can fall apart. Then I picked up my phone and started making some calls of my own. The first call was to my lawyer, Jim Morrison. No relation to the singer, but he'd heard all the jokes. I'd used him for the house purchase and some business stuff over the years. Solid guy, straight shooter. Nick, it's pretty late, everything okay? I gave him the abbreviated version. Cheating wife, false police report, threats of a messy divorce. Jesus, Nick, I'm sorry to hear that. Look, first thing tomorrow, I want you to come in. Bring any evidence you have, texts, photos, whatever, and don't talk to her anymore without a witness present. She's threatening to have me arrested for domestic violence. Did you touch her? She slapped me. I never laid a hand on her. Any witnesses? I thought about Mrs. Winston on her porch. Maybe. The neighbor across the street sees everything that happens on our block. Talk to her. Get a statement if she saw anything. And Nick? Start documenting everything. Every interaction, every threat, every lie. This is war now, and evidence is ammunition. My second call was to Mrs. Winston. I know it sounds crazy, calling an elderly neighbor at 10:30 at night, but she was a night owl. Always had her lights on late, watching old movies. Nick, dear, I was wondering when you'd call. I saw quite a commotion at your house this morning. Mrs. Winston, I hate to bother you, but I need to ask what you saw. Well, I was having my morning coffee on the porch. You know how I like to watch the sunrise. When I heard shouting from your kitchen. That wife of yours has quite a set of lungs. Did you see anything specific? I saw you come out of the house looking like you'd been slapped. Red mark right across your cheek. And I saw that young man Derek drop her off just now in his fancy truck. My heart jumped. You saw Derek drop her off tonight? Oh yes. Big lifted thing. Makes an awful noise. They sat in the driveway for a few minutes before she got out. Looked like they were having quite an intimate conversation, if you know what I mean. Mrs. Winston, would you be willing to write down what you saw, in case I need it later? Of course, dear. I've been watching this neighborhood for 40 years. I know the difference between a victim and a troublemaker. The third call was harder. My brother Steve out in California. We weren't close, hadn't talked in months. But family is family. Nick? What time is it there? It's almost midnight. I know, I'm sorry. Haley and I are getting divorced. Silence. Then, shit, man. I'm sorry. What happened? I gave him the story. He listened without judgment, which I appreciated. So, what do you need from me? Nothing right now. I just wanted someone in the family to hear my side before Haley starts spreading her version. You think she'll do that? She's already started. Her sister thinks I'm an abusive monster. Well, for what it's worth, I never liked her much. Too fake, too concerned with what other people thought. It was a small comfort, but I'd take it. The next morning, I was at Jim Morrison's office at 8 a.m. sharp. He looked over Mrs. Winston's handwritten statement, the bank records showing Haley's attempted fraud, and screenshots of Derek's threatening text. This is good, Nick. Really good. She's not going to be able to play the victim card with this evidence. What about the police report? I'll make some calls. The domestic violence unit takes these things seriously, but they also investigate thoroughly. When they see the evidence, they'll realize what's really going on. And the divorce? Maine is a no-fault state, but adultery can still affect asset division and spousal support, especially when there's evidence of financial misconduct. He leaned back in his chair. She's not going to get the 50-50 split she's expecting. I felt some of the weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in 24 hours, I had hope. But hope, as I was about to learn, can be a dangerous thing. I was at the job site that afternoon when Tommy approached me again, looking uncomfortable. Nick? There's something else you should know. What now? Remember how I told you about my girlfriend at the bank? Well, she also works part-time at the quarry on weekends. She says people are talking. My stomach dropped. What kind of talking? About you and Haley. About what happened. But it's not the version you told me. What version are they hearing? Tommy looked around to make sure no one else was listening. They're saying you found out about Derek and went crazy, that you threatened to kill both of them, that Haley had to get a restraining order. That's not what happened. I know that, and you know that, but half the town is hearing a different story. And Derek's been buying drinks for anyone who'll listen to his version of events. I felt that cold feeling in my chest again. Haley and Derek weren't just trying to win the divorce. They were trying to destroy my reputation in the process. There's more, Tommy said reluctantly. Some of the guys are saying they don't feel comfortable working with someone who might be violent. They're talking about asking Morrison to reassign you. My job. They were coming for my job now. I left work early and drove straight to the quarry. It was Thursday afternoon, so the place was mostly empty, except for a few regulars and the bartender, Sally. Sally had known me for years. We'd gone to high school together. Nick. She didn't smile when she saw me. I was wondering when you'd show up. I guess you've been hearing stories. I've been hearing a lot of things. She continued wiping down glasses without looking at me. Some of them pretty disturbing. Sally, we've known each other for 20 years. Do you really think I'm capable of threatening to kill someone? She finally looked up. I don't know what to think, Nick. Derek seemed pretty shaken up when he was in here last night. Said you'd been driving by his place, following him around town. I drove by one time. He said you keyed his truck. I hadn't keyed his truck, but I'd thought about it. When did Derek Allen become such a reliable source? The guy's been cheating on women since high school. Maybe, but he's not the one with a domestic violence complaint filed against him. The words hit like a slap. Even Sally, who'd known me half my life, was starting to believe their lies. I ordered a beer and sat in the corner, listening to the conversations around me. Sure enough, my name came up more than once. Always in hushed tones, always with words like unstable and dangerous and poor Haley. Derek had been busy. I was finishing my beer when the door opened and 3 guys walked in. I recognized them. Tom Bradley, Jeff Nash, and Danny Morrison, Jim's cousin, ironically. We'd been friends for years, played poker together, went to Patriots games. They saw me and exchanged glances. Tom approached the table. Nick, Tom, Jeff, Danny. I nodded at each of them. Drink? We're not staying long, Tom said. We just wanted to talk to you. About? About what's been going on with you and Haley. Jeff stepped forward. Look, man, we've been friends for a long time. We want to help you through this. I appreciate that. But we need to know, Danny added. Are the things we're hearing true? What things? About you threatening Derek, about you hitting Haley. I looked at these 3 men I'd considered friends, saw the doubt in their eyes, and felt something break inside my chest. You really have to ask me that. We just want to hear your side, Tom said. So I told them. Everything. The cheating, the lies, the slap, the false police report. They listened, but I could see they weren't entirely convinced. Look, Nick, Jeff said when I finished. Maybe you should talk to someone. A counselor or something. This kind of thing can really mess with your head. You think I'm crazy. We think you're hurting, Danny said. And hurt people sometimes do things they wouldn't normally do. I stood up. You know what? Thanks for the intervention, guys. Really? It's nice to know who my friends are. Nick, don't be like that. But I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard Sally telling them about Derek's version of events, about how scared he seemed, about how I'd been stalking him. Outside, the October air was getting colder. Winter was coming early this year. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, watching people go in and out of the quarry. Normal people with normal problems. People who weren't watching their entire lives collapse because of a cheating spouse and her manipulative boyfriend. My phone buzzed. Text from Haley. I heard you were at the quarry bothering people. This needs to stop, Nick. Derek and I just want to move on with our lives. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Funny thing about small towns, Haley. Secrets have a way of coming out eventually. Her response came quickly. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I put the phone away and started the truck. Time to stop playing defense. That night, I made a decision. If Haley and Derek wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. But I was going to be smart about it. First stop, Mrs. Winston's house. She answered the door in her bathrobe and slippers, but invited me in anyway. Her living room was exactly what you'd expect from a 70-year-old widow. Doilies on every surface, family photos covering the mantel, the smell of lavender and old books. "I've been thinking about your situation, dear," she said, pouring me a cup of tea I didn't want. "And I have some things you might find interesting." "What kind of things?" She disappeared into the back room and returned with a small notebook. "I've been keeping track of the comings and goings in this neighborhood for years. Call it a hobby." She opened the notebook and showed me pages of meticulous handwriting, dates, times, license plate numbers, descriptions of visitors. "Your wife has been having gentlemen callers for quite some time," she said matter-of-factly. "Not just Derek Allen, either." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Well, there was that insurance salesman back in July. Came by 3 times when your truck wasn't in the driveway. Stayed for hours each time." She flipped through pages. "And the UPS driver, different one than usual, made several deliveries in August. Never left any packages, though." "You think Haley was—" "I think your wife has been a very busy woman, dear. Derek Allen is just the latest in a series." She showed me more entries. Different men, different cars, all visiting during work hours when I was at job sites across town. "Mrs. Winston, would you be willing to testify to this, in court, if necessary?" "Of course, dear. I believe in the truth." I left her house with copies of the relevant pages and a new understanding of just how long Haley had been lying to me. Derek wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. He was part of a pattern. My next stop was the bank. I'd made an appointment with Peterson to discuss protecting my assets. "The good news is we caught the attempted fraud early," he said, reviewing my accounts. "But there's something else you should know." "What?" "Your wife opened a separate account 3 months ago. We can't give you details, but significant amounts have been moving through it. 3 months. Right when the affair with Derek started. Is there any way to find out where that money came from? If it came from your joint accounts, your lawyer can subpoena those records. But Nick?" He leaned forward. "You should know that Derek Allen has been making large cash deposits lately. More than you'd expect from a handyman's income. The pieces were falling into place. Haley hadn't just been cheating. She'd been planning her exit strategy for months. Moving money, building a nest egg, preparing for the day when everything came out. But she'd made one mistake. She'd underestimated me. I spent the rest of the week gathering information. I drove by Derek's barn and took photos of the expensive toys scattered around, the new ATV, the boat, the motorcycle, all purchased in the last 3 months according to the registration stickers. I talked to people who knew Derek's business. Turns out his handyman work was seasonal and slow. No way he could afford all those new purchases on legitimate income. I also made some calls to Haley's workplace. Her boss, a woman named Patricia Mills, agreed to meet me for coffee. "I probably shouldn't be talking to you about this," Patricia said, stirring her latte nervously. "But Haley's performance has been concerning lately." "Concerning how?" "Long lunches, personal calls during work hours, leaving early for mysterious appointments. And there have been some irregularities in her project budgets." "What kind of irregularities?" "Inflated estimates, phantom expenses, that sort of thing. We've been meaning to audit her accounts, but she's been very charming about it. Very convincing. She always has explanations." I left that meeting with a recording on my phone and a promise from Patricia to look more closely at Haley's expense reports. By Friday, I had enough ammunition to start my counterattack. But I needed the right moment, the right venue, something public enough to make an impact but controlled enough to avoid legal trouble. The opportunity came that weekend. The annual Harvest Festival in the town square, the biggest social event of the fall. Everyone would be there, including Haley and Derek. I spent Saturday morning preparing. I made copies of everything, Mrs. Winston's logs, the bank records, the photos of Derek's unexplained wealth. I put together a timeline that told the real story of my marriage's collapse. The festival was in full swing by the time I arrived. Food trucks, craft booths, a small stage where local bands performed, families with kids, couples holding hands, everyone enjoying the crisp October afternoon. I spotted Haley and Derek by the apple cider stand, looking very much like a happy couple. She was wearing a new dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with my money. They saw me coming and Derek stepped protectively in front of Haley, like I was some kind of threat. "Nick," Derek said loudly enough for nearby people to hear, "I thought we agreed you'd stay away from us." "It's a public festival, Derek. I have as much right to be here as anyone." A small crowd was starting to gather. I recognized some faces, neighbors, co-workers, people I'd known for years. "You need to leave us alone," Haley said, her voice trembling with what sounded like fear. "I don't feel safe around you." Perfect. She was playing her victim card in front of witnesses. "Funny thing about safety, Haley," I said, pulling out the folder I'd prepared. "I've been feeling pretty unsafe myself lately. Unsafe about my bank accounts, my reputation, my future. What's that supposed to mean?" I opened the folder and held up Mrs. Winston's notebook pages. "It means I've been doing some research. About your afternoon visitors. About Derek's sudden wealth. About where our joint savings have been going." The color drained from Haley's face. "You're stalking us," Derek said, but his voice wasn't as confident as before. "I'm documenting fraud." I turned to address the growing crowd. "See, everyone's been hearing about how I'm the bad guy in this divorce. How I threatened my poor, innocent wife. How I'm unstable and dangerous." "Nick, stop," Haley whispered. "But nobody's heard about the 3 months of affairs. The missing money from our joint accounts. The fake expense reports at her job." "That's not true." But Haley's protest sounded weak. I held up the bank records. $50,000 transferred to a secret account over the past 3 months. And look at this. Derek's new toys, all purchased right after the transfers. Derek lunged for the papers, but I stepped back. "Easy there, big guy. Wouldn't want anyone to think you were violent." The crowd was murmuring now. I saw phones coming out, people taking pictures and videos. This was exactly what I'd hoped for. "You want to know what really happened?" I continued. "I caught my wife cheating and asked her to leave. She slapped me. Mrs. Winston saw it from her porch, then filed a false police report claiming I hit her." "You're lying," Haley said, but her voice was barely audible. "Mrs. Winston, are you here?" I called out. The crowd parted, and there was my elderly neighbor, leaning on her walker but standing tall. "I saw everything, dear," she said, in her clear, carrying voice. "The slap, the shouting, the way that young man dropped her off later that night." Derek's face was red with anger and embarrassment. "This is harassment. I'm calling the police." "Good idea," I said. "I'm sure they'd love to see these financial records, especially the part about how you've been living off stolen money." That's when Derek snapped. He shoved me hard in the chest, sending me stumbling backward into a craft booth. The crowd gasped. Phones were definitely recording now. "Derek, no!" Haley grabbed his arm, but it was too late. "You son of a bitch!" Derek was advancing on me, fists clenched. "You think you can ruin my life?" I stayed down, hands visible, making no threatening moves. "I'm not the one who ruined your life, Derek. You did that when you decided to steal from a married man." He kicked at me, but I rolled away. 2 festival security guards were pushing through the crowd now. "He attacked me!" Derek shouted as they grabbed his arms. "This maniac has been stalking us for weeks." But there were too many witnesses, too many cameras. Everyone had seen Derek throw the first punch, had heard him threaten me. As they led Derek away, I stood up and brushed myself off. The crowd was buzzing with excitement and gossip. Haley stood alone by the cider stand, tears streaming down her face, her carefully constructed victim narrative crumbling around her. "This isn't over, Nick," she said quietly as I walked past her. "You're right," I replied. It's not. The video of Derek attacking me at the Harvest Festival went viral within hours. Not internet-famous viral, but small-town viral, which in some ways was worse. By Sunday morning, everyone in town had seen footage of the golden boy losing his temper and assaulting his girlfriend's husband. The narrative was shifting, and I could feel it. My phone rang at 8 a.m. Officer Martinez, the same cop who'd taken Haley's domestic violence report. "Mr. Braxton? We need to talk." An hour later, I was sitting in an interview room at the police station, but this time I wasn't the suspect. I was the victim. "We've reviewed the evidence from yesterday's incident," Martinez said, "as well as some additional information that's come to light regarding your original complaint." "What kind of additional information?" "Bank records, witness statements, some very interesting financial data." He leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Braxton, it appears your wife may have filed a false report against you." I tried to look surprised rather than vindicated. "We're dropping the domestic violence investigation against you and opening a new investigation into possible fraud and filing a false police report." "What does that mean for Derek?" "Mr. Allen has been charged with assault. He made bail this morning, but he's looking at serious legal trouble." I left the police station feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The official cloud of suspicion was lifting, but I knew the real battle was just beginning. Haley was waiting for me at home, sitting on the front porch like she belonged there. "We need to talk," she said. "I thought Derek was your spokesperson now." "Derek's in jail, Nick." "Thanks to you." "Derek's in jail because he can't control his temper. Just like he couldn't control his hands when it came to other men's wives." She flinched at that. "I want to make a deal." "I'm listening." "I'll admit the police report was exaggerated. I'll pay back the money I took from our accounts. We can get divorced quietly, split things fairly." In exchange for? "In exchange for you not pressing charges for the false report, and you stop spreading lies about me around town." I studied her face, looking for the woman I'd once loved. She was still there, somewhere under all the manipulation and desperation. "What about Derek? What about him? You going to stand by your man? Support him through his legal troubles?" She looked away. "Derek and we're taking a break, until things settle down. Of course they were. Now that Derek was a liability instead of an asset, Haley was cutting him loose, just like she'd done with me." "Here's my counteroffer," I said. "You return every penny you stole, plus interest. You admit to the police that you filed a false report. You sign a confession about the financial fraud, and you move out of my house permanently. And in exchange, I don't press charges. You get to keep your freedom and what's left of your reputation. That's not fair, Nick." "I'd lose everything." "You already lost everything. You just haven't admitted it yet." She started crying then, real tears this time instead of the crocodile tears she'd been using for manipulation. "I never meant for it to go this far," she sobbed. "It started as just, I don't know, excitement, something different. And then Derek convinced you to start stealing money. He said we needed a nest egg, for when we got married. He said you'd try to screw me in the divorce, so I needed to protect myself. By screwing me first." She nodded miserably. I felt a moment of pity for her. She'd been manipulated too, in her own way. Derek had used her loneliness and dissatisfaction to turn her into an accomplice. But pity doesn't erase betrayal. "You have 24 hours to decide," I said. "Take my deal or face the consequences." She left without another word. That evening, Mike came by with pizza and beer. We sat in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of my marriage, and talked about the future. "So, what happens now?" he asked. "Now I rebuild." "New life, new start." "You think she'll take the deal?" "She doesn't have much choice. The evidence is overwhelming. And Derek? Derek's going to prison. Maybe not for long, but long enough to think about the choices he made." Mike raised his beer bottle. "To new beginnings. to new beginnings. We clinked bottles and drank to the future. The next morning, Haley called at exactly 24 hours after our conversation. "I'll take your deal," she said quietly. "Smart choice." "I'm sorry, Nick. For all of it. You deserved better." "Yes, I did." She hung up without saying goodbye. 3 hours later, she was at the police station with her lawyer, signing a confession and agreeing to make full restitution. The charges against me were officially dropped, and new charges were filed against her for fraud and filing a false report. But true to my word, I didn't press for jail time. She got probation, community service, and a permanent mark on her record. Derek wasn't so lucky. His assault charge stuck, and the financial fraud charges meant he was looking at real prison time. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I kept the house, the truck, and most of our assets. Haley got her car and whatever was left of her reputation. She moved to Portland, supposedly to start over. I heard through the grapevine that she was working as a waitress while trying to rebuild her career. Derek got 18 months in state prison. As for me, I kept working construction, kept living in our house, kept moving forward one day at a time. The town's opinion of me gradually shifted back to normal as the truth came out, and the gossip moved on to other scandals. 6 months after the divorce, I was at the quarry having a beer when Sally approached my table. "Nick, I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything, Sally." "Yes, I do. I should have known better. You're not the kind of man who hits women or makes threats. People hear what they want to hear, see what they want to see. Still, I'm sorry I doubted you." She bought me a drink, and we talked about old times and new possibilities. It felt good to be trusted again, to be seen as a victim rather than a villain. Later that night, I drove past Derek's barn. It was dark and empty, with a for sale sign in the yard. The bank had foreclosed after he went to prison. I thought about Haley, starting over in a new city with a criminal record and a ruined reputation. I thought about Derek sitting in a prison cell, probably blaming everyone but himself for his situation. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated, victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. 15 years of marriage, gone. A life I'd built, destroyed. Friends who'd doubted me, a reputation I'd had to fight to restore. But I'd won. That had to count for something. I drove home to my empty house and went to bed, alone but free. And for the first time in months, I slept peacefully through the night. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching